I sabotaged my father's marriage because he cheated on my mother. When I was 4 years old, my father and mother divorced because he cheated on her. They had a really rough divorce and had lots of fights. Eventually the divorce was settled and my mother and father could move on. My father married his mistress, who I'll call Liz to respect her privacy. My father was really happy with her and me and my sister got a stepbrother and 2 stepsisters with whom we got along really well. Skip forward 2 years and he started acting different and so was my father. Me and my sister often couldn't visit our father because he had to work, whilst in reality he was free. When me and my sister were there we often weren't allowed to eat at the table, which 7-year-old me didn't understand. Eventually my father started becoming more distant, he didn't wish me happy birthday anymore and missed a lot of important milestones in my childhood, like learning to ride my bike or plays at school. When I was 9 my sister and I could only visit 4 days a month and had to sleep in separate rooms. I vividly remember that during one weekend that we were there I had accidentally broken a glass and he had turned furious. She sent me upstairs and had me take my socks, of which 9-year-old me found really weird. Then she showed me a piece of glass she held in her hand and said that this is what I deserved for my clumsiness. She pushed the shard of glass into the sole of my foot. I yelled and cried and tried to remove my leg from her grasp when I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was my father's hand, he was helping me do this. I don't remember what happened after that. He also got into a huge fight with my sister and had pulled her by her hair down to the basement. After these 2 occasions and a lot of verbal abuse we decided to break all contact and tell our mother what had happened. We hadn't told her before because, well, he was our father. My mother knew this was serious abuse but she was too afraid to alert the police since my father had threatened her with violence before. Skip forward another 5 years, I was 14 and a freshman at the same school my former step-siblings attended. Once I saw them all the memories started rising again. My 2 stepsisters had become huge bullies and lots of people hated them. Me and a couple of friends decided to retaliate and secretly put small bags of marijuana in their backpacks. Apparently this had caused a huge fight in their home and my father and he decided to divorce. After this he got into serious financial troubles and my father became an alcoholic. 2 weeks ago he was arrested for assault. He has allegedly become a prostitute and my former step-siblings have been brought into protective custody. This has all been my fault. It was my idea to put the marijuana in their bags, even though they hadn't done anything to me. I ruined the lives of my step-siblings and sent my stepmother and father into a downward spiral. Yet in some sick way I don't feel any remorse. My sister has been dealing with a severe eating disorder after all the verbal abuse from me and has been hospitalized twice. I've tried once to commit suicide because of my sexual orientation since I thought I was an abomination after conservative Christian rants. Now me and my sister are doing better, though we still have traumas. We've thought about starting a lawsuit but because of our ages during the incidents legal advisors have advised us to just move on. Anyway. I'm in a real moral dilemma. I did something that caused horrible things, yet I don't feel any remorse. I stole a girl's iPod Touch and then sold it back to her a month later. It's 2011, I'm in year 7, it's my first year in high school and I got sent somewhere where I literally only knew one person, and we never spoke. A few months into the year and I'm sitting in math class and this one girl who I just could not stand, and who also bullied me on and off, kept just interrupting for the stupidest of things, and just generally kept getting on my nerves the whole lesson. Part way through the lesson the teacher tells us to leave our things in the classroom so we could go to the computer lab, and I was the last to leave the classroom. Note that most kids hid their iPods under their pencil cases during class so they could get away with using it, and I knew for a fact she'd left it there. I don't know what possessed me to steal her iPod, but I did. She never found out. But now, I leave school, the iPod is still in my shorts pocket. Nobody knows what I've done. The girl thinks one of the guys was screwing with her and doesn't suspect me at all. Now the one defining feature of her iPod was that the back was completely covered in small circle stickers. Ones that had gotten so worn down they'd almost fused with the device. So I did what I could and I scrubbed those fuckers off until it looked brand new. I didn't use it at all, in fear of my mom seeing it and screaming at me for being a thief. So it just sat in my room gathering dust, until about a month later I overhear her asking some people if they know anyone selling an iPod. 1 week later and I'd made $150 by selling a girl her own iPod that had just been factory reset and scrubbed down. When I was a server I threw a customer's phone into a trash compactor. I had just started serving tables at a restaurant, and I was working my first super busy brunch shift. I had 6+ tables and I'm not gonna lie, I had a tough time running all the mimosas that my tables were ordering. I could tell that one table of all women were getting abnormally angry about their drinks taking a while. I apologized for the delay and made a joke about it being an especially busy shift. I offered them a round of drinks on me to smooth the situation over. When I walked away, one lady murmured under her breath that I was an incompetent cunt. Let's stop there. It's common for people to treat servers like shit, but this was the first time I ever had experienced being spoken to like I was garbage. I shook it off and continued to be nice to them, but it only got worse from there. They started to laugh at me, and shit-talk me to one another. They told me that my future career looked pretty bleak, considering I couldn't even serve tables. Honey, even a toddler can deliver drinks. When I took their order for food, one woman refused to speak to me. She just stared at me while her friend ordered for her. By now I am pissed. I asked her why she felt the need to have her friend order for her. She laughed in my face, looked down at the menu, and said because I was a dumb little bitch. Due to the fact I was at work, I couldn't argue or tell her to eat shit for treating me like I was a dog. If I did, my boss would have fired me. They ended up stiffing me on their $200 check. Once they left, I realized the woman that gave me so much shit had left her phone. I took it and went out the back door to smoke a cigarette and try to calm down. Who the hell did that woman think she is? So I promptly turned off her phone, threw it in the trash compactor, and turned it on. She came back minutes later and asked multiple staff members if we found it. I told her that I didn't see it when I bust the table, and that I would call her if it turned up. I never told anyone, but I never regretted doing it. When you treat people like shit, expect shitty things to happen to you. I choked out an 8th grader 13 years ago. Some background info needed. I come from a mixed-race Muslim family and grew up in a small post-9/11 Midwestern town, so there was a lot of bullying towards me and my siblings. During a school football game my younger brother was watching, one of the guys that bullied us, let's call him Chad, who was in the same grade as me, threw a water bottle at my little brother's face. My brother, a 7th grader, had to walk home with a swollen eye and my mom had to put ice on it to get the swelling to go down. He wouldn't tell her who did it, but he told me. This flipped a switch in my head. My brother was bullied a lot more than me on account he was younger, slightly effeminate and had dark skin like our father. Meanwhile I was a year older, tall for my age and white like my mom, so I didn't have it close as bad as him. Anyway, Chad would leave school out one of the back exits to save time on his walk home. I knew nobody else left that way, so when school got out the next Monday I followed him. I ran after him and started chalking him from behind like I had seen in action movies. Maybe it was because of the adrenaline, but I started screaming all kinds of crap at him. The cliché "don't mess with my family" stuff. I left him unconscious behind the school and went home. This was the first and last time I used violence against someone. I never told anyone and neither did he, so I wasn't punished for this. Chad turned up to school the next day and everything was back to normal. The only thing that changed was that Chad and his friends stopped harassing me and my bro. To this day I still think he had it coming. I beat up a kid because he kicked my elderly dog. When I was 23, my 14-year-old Beagle Mix was diagnosed with a fast-acting cancer that had already started to spread. I'd had him since he was 1 and I made it my mission in life to keep him as comfortable and happy as I could. There was nothing he loved more than walking in the park, so I packed him up in the car and we for a short and slow walk every day. He was the sweetest, friendliest boy, so it was absolutely shocking when on one of our walks, a boy we'd never seen before, who was probably 10 to 11, ran up to us screaming, "I hate your ugly, gross dog, lady." My initial's response was okay, well we're just passing by, so goodbye then. Then the little jerk let out an inhuman screech and ran forward and kicked my dog in the stomach. My poor boy yelped and whimpered and crumpled to the ground in pain, and the kid laughed in that horribly demonic way only a child can laugh, and then reeled back to kick again. Before that moment, I had never experienced rage as an adult. I'm pretty evenly keeled person, and I'm typically a pacifist and diplomat. This was the first and only time in my life that I saw red. Before my brain had even processed what happened, I'd already lunged at the kid and sort of half-grabbed, half-shoved him by the neck, and pushed him to the ground very hard. He immediately burst into tears, and that's when I should have stopped. But I couldn't stop. It was the only time in my life when I felt like I wasn't in control of my actions. The kid was scrambling to get up and I kicked him really hard in the side, several times. Then I grabbed him by his sweatshirt hood and screamed in his face at the top of my lungs. I screamed some really horrible things at him, something like that I'd find him and kill him slowly if he ever tried to hurt another animal again, but it felt like the words were just erupting out of me with no thought or effort. At that point the kid was ugly, sobbing and apologizing and begging me to let him go, which I guess helped me to snap out of it, because I felt myself, for lack of a better description, return to my body. I felt totally numb and sort of inebriated, but the rage was gone. I let the kid go, and told him to go find his mom, and hastily added, "and don't ever kick a dog again." He ran off crying. I scooped my dog up, hustled to my car and left. I was oddly calm. I drove to the vet and told them only that a child had kicked my dog and ran away, and I wanted to get him checked out. They checked him out and said there was no serious damage, other than the beginnings of a bruise. I drove us home, got into the shower and sobbed for hours. I had no idea until then that I was capable of doing anything like that. I started therapy the next week to deal with the anger issues I didn't know I had until then, and I've never had another issue like that. I didn't go back to that park for years, for fear of running into that kid again, mostly for fear that his parents would be there and get me arrested. I took Freddie to a different park, that was a little further from the house, but he actually liked it more because it had good soft dirt to dig in, until his final day on Earth. I think about that kid sometimes, though. I wonder how my actions impacted him. Did I scare him straight? Did I teach him to be more violent? Does he have some complex about short women now because a short woman beat him up when he was a kid? He's gotta be at least a teenager now. I wonder how often he thinks about it, if ever. I wonder if he sees himself as being entirely the victim, or if by now he's loved and lost a pet, and understands the drive behind what I did.